I'm Maurice Patton. That's Wade Neely. We are Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, coming to you from the remote Lee Company studio, otherwise known as First Horizon Park. Big studio.
Yeah, we're out at the big yard today, Mo, as we get ready for a Feel Good Friday edition. Always good to be at the ballpark, of course, and First Horizon taking good care of us as always.
Absolutely. Being at the ballpark is never a bad thing as the Nashville Sounds get ready to continue their series today against Louisville, and they're getting ready.
Getting cranked up. It's going to be a good one. And
a lot of activity around the park.
Yeah. A little bit more, like you said, activity than when we were here for Media Day, as they're now knee-deep in the middle of their season here.
Yeah, absolutely. So, again, we're here at First Horizon Park. We will be joined in the second hour today by Chris Lee of Southeastern 14, talking a little NCAA Super Regionals. We'll be joined in our next segment by Big Z, Rob ZASTRYZNY. There we go.
It was a quality effort. It'll be a team effort today.
The thing is, Colin has really kind of schooled me up on this, and I should be better at it, but I'm not. Rob ZASTRYZNY. We'll get there. He's going to join us at 2:20 as we talk a little Nashville Sounds. We'll also be talking some Braves, more baseball, and big doings in the NBA last night. Obviously, we've got Stanley Cup Final starting up this weekend. There's a little horse race this weekend as well. We'll talk a little bit about that, and our top story. I'm excited to get to that. So, Wade, you were taking in some CMA Fest last night. How did that go?
Went pretty well, including a late night cameo from Blake Shelton and an up and coming country artist by the name of Post Malone made a cameo as well. So it was fun. And then we got to close it out with Leonard Skinner. CMA Fest. Country music is not my cup of tea, but the CMA Fest does a great job of keeping the artists rolling, keeping the fans entertained. And halfway through the show, you're like, oh, okay, this is pretty nice. So we'll be back out there tonight and Sunday. And they do a good job over there at Nissan for sure. But really, the whole city kind of embraces CMA Fest, which, as Colin told us earlier, they're glad that CMA Fest is going on. And the Sounds have even leaned into it with a couple of their promotions this week. But they're also a little bummed because the crowds are not quite as fruitful as they might be on Thursday, Friday, or Saturday or Sunday games otherwise.
You know, it's interesting, though, from our vantage point right here at the front gate, watching people walk by and come up to the gates and take pictures of the field and that kind of thing. It's this is kind of a showpiece for some of these folks coming through town. So maybe some of them actually will stop in for a ball game or have. So, yeah.
I think so. And First Horizon Park, we mentioned they take great care of us, but they're in a great location here. There's tons of stuff to walk and check out. And you're kind of right in that kind of up-and-coming Germantown neighborhood that really is kind of flourishing. So they kind of got it going on. It just so also happens that they got a pretty good baseball team as well.
Does not hurt that they have that. So, yeah, if you want to see some good baseball, come on out. 6:35 tonight, 6:35 tomorrow night. What is it, 2:05 Sunday, I think it is. So, yeah, still lots to do in addition to CMA Fest. So, haven't already given you that schedule. Let's go ahead with yesterday's results and today's schedule on the rundown.
This is the Rundown.
Hey, folks, the Friday Rundown is brought to you by Chip Walters of Exit Realty, Bob Lamb and Associates. The Blue Raider Voice also wants to be your trusted advisor in real estate. So contact Chip at 615-542-1915 or visit his website at choosechip.net. That's Chip Walters, proud to support youth sports across Middle Tennessee.
Thursday scores of interest in Major League Baseball. The Atlanta Braves picked up a 5-2 win to open their series against the host Nationals. In the Giles County Little League All-Star Classic, the National League got off the mat with a pair of victories, 6-3 over the American League and 13-11 in a pitcher's duel over the American League. So that is what, 3-2 now? Is that right?
3-2. And I wasn't there last night, Mo, but reading the summary and game changer last night, the National League was down to its final out in the 6th inning for the elimination game in game 4. But they managed to rally, managed to get the win, and then followed up with a Game 5 win. So, 3-2. They'll play 2 more. We'll tell you guys a little bit about that later. How about that?
All right, sounds good. Right here at First Horizon yesterday, in a completion of a suspended game, the Louisville Bats defeated the Sounds 5-4. In the originally scheduled game, the Sounds all over Louisville 10-3. WNBA action last night, the Chicago Sun with a 79-71 win over the Washington Mystics, and the New York Liberty defeated the Atlanta Dream 78-61.
Let's hop into today's schedule, folks. Busy day of baseball, as Mo and I have mentioned. And the Major League Baseball, the Braves are at the Nationals beginning at 5:45. Game can be seen on Bally Sports Southeast. The Astros will be at the Angels. That game can be seen nationally on MLB Network. Into Saturday we go. Braves at Nats beating at 3:05 on Bally Sports South. The Astros and Angels, late night affair, 9:07 Central Time, 9:07 local time, but that also will be on MLB Network. Into Sunday now, 12:35 is the Braves and Nats close that series out on Bally's, and then on local Houston television, it'll be the Astros at Angels, a much more manageable 3:07 first pitch. That game coming your way on Sunday to close that one out. Final baseball mentions from us here on our schedule tonight and Saturday night. It'll be Louisville at First Horizon Park taking on your Nashville Sounds at 6:35. And as Mo mentioned, Sunday, 2:05 will close out that series, which has been a fun one this week throughout today's show.
Absolutely. WNBA action tonight. The Indiana Fever travels to Washington, taking on the Mystics. That's a 6:30 start. You can see it on Ion. Also on Ion, 9 o'clock starts for all 3 of these. So check your local listings to see who you get. Dallas is at the Sparks. Minnesota is at Phoenix. And Seattle is at the Las Vegas Aces. Again, all of those are 9 o'clock starts. They can all be seen on Ion. So which one you get, couldn't tell you. Saturday, 12 noon, the New York Liberty is at the Connecticut Sun. You can see that one on ABC. At 4 o'clock on Saturday, the Atlanta Dream is at the Chicago Sky. Sunday slate, 2 o'clock, Washington is at the Liberty. At 3 o'clock, the Phoenix Mercury is at Dallas. At 6, Seattle travels to Minnesota. And at 8, the Aces are at the Sparks. We were mentioning the Giles County Little League All-Star Classic. Game 6 is tonight. That's a 5:45 start. Game 7, if necessary, will follow both of those games. Is that right? Yep. Both can be seen on the Pulaski Citizen Live YouTube channel. So be sure and check the little guys out. And in arena football, tomorrow, 7 o'clock, you can also see this one on YouTube as the Nashville Cats travel out west, taking on the Outlaws of Billings, Montana. We'll talk more about that later in the show as well. And that is your rundown. Top story brought to you, as always, by Piggly Wiggly in Neely's Mill in Columbia. Be sure and check out their delicious daily deli lunch options. They are available until 6 p.m. daily. You can also get their hand-cut meats, and everything is cost plus 10% at the cash register. Piggly Wiggly, Neely's Mill, Columbia. There has never been a four-peat in NCAA Division I women's college softball history until last night. And, I mean, did anybody think anything otherwise, really?
Sure didn't feel like it after that first game. Texas, as we talked on the show yesterday, all that momentum coming in, they were on a heater coming into the series. And when they dropped that first one, without knowing the team, obviously, it just felt like, man, that was a gut punch. And champions do champion type things. And when Oklahoma sends blood in the water, it seems like they took it. And a big, big win for the Sooners, making history last night.
Making history in that, over this 4 years, they are 235-15.
Wow.
They've not been shut out in any of those 15 losses. They've not been run ruled in any of those 15 losses. Meanwhile, hang on, because I saw a graphic on this that I wanted to go back and reference. Here we go. They have won 49% of those games, 114 of them by shutout.
Whew.
And 56% of them, 131, have been run rule wins, 8 runs or more.
Good grief.
And if that's not domination, I don't know what is. They are the first team to win. Well, they're the first team to win 4 in a row. The only other team to win 3 was UCLA from 88 to 90.
So that rarefied air, to say the least, as OU softball just continues to roll. And Mo, we talked about it too on the show yesterday. This is the only clip I saw from last night. And it kind of spoke to the point that Texas just seemed off their game. The big base running error that was kind of going around on social last night, as Mia Scott really kind of just had a mental miscue there. And in a game of that magnitude, in a stage of that magnitude,
you can't afford mental miscues.
Can't afford.
And there was a runner at third. They were going to have first and third with 2 outs right there. And I think they had just gone up 3-2, maybe. It was a critical juncture of the game, and it really deflated a rally big time. And like we've said here over the past few days, Oklahoma kind of sensing blood on the water a little bit and seized on it. And next thing you know, it's an 8-4 Oklahoma victory for the championship. Just they're 8th overall, 6 in the past 8 years, 4 straight.
They are setting the standard. I mean, at this point now, you're wondering, how high can they go? I mean, you'd say, okay, they're going into the SEC next year. Like, it's going to be that much tougher. But, I mean, they're kind of the standard bearer right now. They're coming into the SEC and saying, so what? We're the team that you guys are chasing.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you said it. They are the standard bearer at this point, nationally and in the Southeastern Conference. I mean, Texas beats Florida to get to the championship game. Texas had beaten Oklahoma in a regular season series, as had Oklahoma State. You felt like at one time this season, maybe this is the year somebody gets Oklahoma. They finished up 55-10.
And talk about just kind of a funny situation last night. One of their pitchers got in late in the game, and a friend of mine pointed this out, Kirsten Deal. Is there a better name for a pitcher, last name at least, than Deal? As she was got in for an inning of relief there, and OU just
and she dealt.
She did.
Yeah.
She did. And the Sooners are 4-time NCAA national champion. That is just kind of mind blowing.
Really
the run
is.
that they're on right now, especially some of those stats that you rattled off a moment ago.
235-15.
Wow.
Good luck, Southeastern Conference.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's what's coming in next year. And I'm sure that trophy will be on display at their welcome party on July 1st out in Norman, Oklahoma City, Tulsa, wherever it is. So stay tuned for that. Hey, let's go ahead and take a break here on Main Street Sports Today from the Lee Company Studios. When we return, we will be joined by Rob ZASTRYZNY. I think I got it. So stay tuned when we come back here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia.
Bluegrass Auction Associates is hosting another real estate auction Saturday, June 8th at 10 a.m. in the beautiful Hickory Woods subdivision. This spacious estate offers numerous amenities, perfect for the homeowner or investor. Conveniently located in Davidson County, Tennessee at 221 Wild Grove Court. This is the sale you don't want to miss. Join Bluegrass and bid with confidence Saturday, June 8th at 10 a.m.
Nashville Sounds Baseball is back in Hit City for the 2024 season. Spend your nights and weekends at the ballpark with weekly giveaways, fireworks shows, throwback deals, live music, and more. Top talent will take the field at First Horizon Park against the AAA Minnesota Twins, Baltimore Orioles, Atlanta Braves, St. Louis Cardinals, Cincinnati Reds, and more. Tickets start at just $10 and are available now at NashvilleSounds.com. We will see you in Hit City.
Whether you're an athlete or a weekend warrior, when it comes to your performance, don't settle for anything less than excellence. We're proud to announce that Mid-Tennessee Bone and Joint Clinic is now Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, where we are redefining sports medicine and orthopedics. Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance's team of expert sports medicine physicians understands the unique demands of your body. TOA Columbia specializes in personalized orthopedic care, offering state-of-the-art treatments for everything from sports injuries to joint replacements. Learn more at toacolumbia.com.
With Lee Company technology, the best handymen are hands-off. Lee Company techs have been using visual findings and other smart technology tools for years to add transparency and virtually take customers along. You see what we see, whether we're in a crawl space or on a roof. With Lee Company, technology helps us help you, no matter what's happening in the world or at your house.
Jones & Lang Sporting Goods here in Columbia has been outfitting teams, officials, and anybody else from T-ball to college for 50 plus years. Be sure and check them out at 931-388-8060 or online at jonesandlang.com. Jones & Lang Sporting Goods, the look of a winner.
Zion Christian Academy, zioneagles.org or 931-388-5731. You can schedule your appointment. Go tour their campus. It is beautiful over there, and you're definitely going to want to see it. Again, it's zioneagles.org. Give them a call, 931-388-5731, and schedule your tour today. Custom Stone Handler supplies over 600 distributors and suppliers with quality stone products. Along with River Stone, we produce and distribute over 100 building, landscape, and other bulk products. Our goal is to provide quality products, service, and partnerships to ensure our customers' success. We firmly believe that the measure of any person or company is how they treat other people and customers. Give them a call at 931-490-4990 or visit CustomStonehandlers.com.
Piggly Wiggly, located in Neely's Mill Shopping Center, is Columbia's locally owned and operated Cost Plus 10 grocery store dedicated to serving the community with low prices and smiling faces. Piggly Wiggly offers fresh, hand-cut meats daily as well as daily hot plate lunches from their deli counter. You're certain to see smiling faces and a helping hand when you're here at Piggly Wiggly. Come by and check out our fresh produce, high-quality meats, and more. Down home, down the street, we'll see you at the Pig.
Edition of Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. I'm Maurice Patton, along with Wade Neely, and we are now joined by Nashville Sounds reliever Rob ZASTRYZNY. How'd I do?
That was perfect.
Awesome.
Nailed it.
Awesome. Hey, under pressure, coming through. Kind of like Big Z. 4-0 with a 2.45 ERA and 23 appearances for the Sounds thus far. Rob, welcome to Nashville, first of all. This is your first time through here, is that right?
Yeah, I've been to every stadium in AAA now, but yeah, this is my first time playing in Nashville. One of the best minor league cities. It's pretty well known, but the staff here and everything, they treat you great, so I have no complaints here.
That's awesome. That having pitched in every AAA stadium, is that a double-edged sword there for a guy? How does that work?
Yeah, it is. I've being 32 years old. I remember when I got drafted, I was a second-round pick, and I was like, okay, I'm going to play till I'm 35 and then reassess from there.
Mm-hmm.
And you just don't realize that a lot of guys don't play past 29, 30 anymore because they kind of figure you out by then, and they're like, he's either good enough to play or he's not. So you're either in the big leagues or you're not. And so I had an elbow injury in 2020. Came back going a little harder and kind of had like a little rejuvenation of my career here. But it's a double-edged sword. But at the same time, I'm still playing. We were just talking about it when I sat down. I don't know of any better job I could have. I think I have aspirations of coaching someday, but until then, I don't. I mean, yesterday I sat in the pen and got to talk to my teammates for 3 hours, and I didn't do anything.
Are you at the point in your career where you're the like wise Yoda in the bullpen, where you're kind of giving advice and kind of life wisdoms to the guys? How does that work, especially those long nights that you're talking about?
Sometimes, yeah. I think when guys really need help, I like to joke around a lot.
Uh-huh.
When they really need help, they'll come and be like, "Hey, for real, I need whatever. Talk to me about something." But for the most part, it's kind of been funny because like Carlos Rodriguez the other day asked me how the '80s were. I was like, man. I was born in 1992, and I don't know if he was serious or not. I can never tell with that kid, but it kind of made me realize that, like, I feel like a kid. I feel like I haven't had to grow up. I haven't done any, like, responsible life stuff, but I am an old man in the game, and they're starting to treat me that way.
Pitched collegiately at Missouri, 2 seasons, 11 and 12 in the Big 12. Pitched for the Tigers their first year in the SEC. Was Tony V still at Missouri when you were there?
He recruited me there. And he was honestly the main reason I decided to go. Like, I love the campus and the coaching staff and everything there, but I was TCU, Baylor, and Missouri were my big three. And once I met Vitello and talked to him, I realized that that's kind of where I wanted to be. And then, funny enough, a couple weeks before I got to campus, he went to TCU. But long story short, I had Matt Hobbs come in, who's the Arkansas pitching coach now. And I had him for all 3 years, and he kind of changed the trajectory of my career. I give him all the credit in the world because I came in and I was like, okay, I want to make the travel team, graduate college, and then go get a job. And he took one look at me and was like, why don't you want to play Pro Bowl? And I was like, well, I don't know. I don't know anyone who has.
Yeah,
exactly. And he was like, why don't you dedicate your life to this like you already have and go play Pro Bowl? And so from then on out, it was like, let's do this for a living. And here I am as a 32-year-old.
You know, that's really interesting, Rob, because sometimes all it takes is one person to believe in you, right?
Yeah, it definitely is. And it's the same with Vitello. Like, Vitello grabbed me from a Joplin tournament, and he was like, hey, I think you're a really good player. I think that you're better than what these other teams are telling you are. I think you can come in and pitch immediately for us. And I was like, okay, like, I kind of believe that. Missouri at the time had been to like 21 straight regionals. And so I was like, okay, like, I'm not sure how honest he's being. But then Baylor and TCU both were like, come in, have a strong redshirt season, and we'll go from there. And once I heard that, I was like, I'm going to go where they're going to let me play.
Right.
And then Hobbs from there was like, hey, I think you're really good. And until you start believing it, it's not going to matter. And so I worked on believing it.
I was going to say, I find it fascinating. You've had kind of 2 different moments where it just took one little spark to kind of push you further along. Kind of having been in the big league level, as it were, for a while. What is your motivation? What do you look to for motivation, or what is kind of your spark at the moment currently?
At the moment is my wife is, I don't want to get this wrong, she'd yell at me, but she is almost done her 2nd trimester pregnant.
Okay.
So right now
Crafty answer right there.
Yeah, there you go. And it's playing, and then next year I want to be in the big leagues. I want to have a picture of me and my future baby in the big leagues. And then after that, it's whatever. But that's kind of my motivation now, is play until I can set us up even further in life, or get a couple pictures and let my future baby know that I was a pretty good athlete at some point in my life.
That's awesome. Rob ZASTRYZNY. I got it once. ZASTRYZNY of the Nashville Sounds joining us here on Main Street Sports today. You know, you were recruited by Vitello. You're here in Nashville now. I'm sure you're hearing a lot about UT baseball. What's the reaction to what he's done in a head coaching role relative to how you knew him during your recruitment?
In recruitment, he was a lot younger. Like I said, I'm older now, so it was 2008 or 2009, I think, is when I was on my recruiting visit. And he was just a super charismatic guy, and he was something that I could tell just by our conversations. Like, he picked where we were going to eat, and the way he sold me on how good that breakfast spot was, and the way he sold me on, like, dude, this car that we're driving is super nice. I was like, this guy could sell me on anything. And I think he's doing the same thing. He has all those kids bought in. And say what you want, like, baseball is becoming a lot more fun. Guys are bat flipping, guys are yelling. And I went to a UNC Louisville game when we were in Durham. And my agent's son's Casey Cook. He's their 2-hole. He's an awesome player. And I was watching, and they're all fired up. And it's kind of like you're in pro ball for so long, and you don't really get that unless you're either at the super low levels where guys just left college, or you're in the big leagues, because everything else is like development. Everything else is how do I get to a different spot. In college, that was kind of the last time we really didn't care about what was going on next year or last year. It was like, how do we win today? And if we don't win today, how do we win tomorrow? And I think that's what Vitello has all his guys doing, and they're super fired up to win, and that's all they want to do.
You sound like you missed that a
I
little
do.
bit.
I do. And I was in the big leagues last year for a couple months, and I've been up and down for the last 6 years. But even then, it's like you show up and you're like, okay, I need to perform. I need to help this team win, and I need to stay here as long as I can. Whereas in college, it's like you just assume you're going to be there until your scholarship runs out or you graduate. And it's just kind of a nice feeling, right? Like everybody who comes in, you're like, okay, this guy's here for the long haul. We're here to win. Whereas kind of in minor league baseball, it is kind of what the business is guys will come in and you might be gone in a week. You might be gone in 2 months. You just never know. And the only cool thing about pro ball is you kind of run into all these people. Like I know probably 11 guys on this Louisville team. Mitch White, who just got here yesterday, I played with for a year in 19. And so it's like seeing all these people and seeing, like, the last time I saw Mitch, he was a 24-year-old. And now he's a 29-year-old grown man. And it's just cool to see that. But as far as college goes, I kind of do miss that, like, showing up every day to win that day. And then you're celebrating that day. Like,
right
after the Sunday series, you all go drink. And you're like, oh, that was such a cool game, whatever. Kind of in pro ball, you're trying to separate the two because you play so much. It's like you leave the field and it's like, okay, how can I forget about the field while I'm at home?
How do you approach or how is it being at this level, developing relationships and kind of friendships, knowing that in the blink of an eye, either you or they could be gone up or down? How does that process work for you?
I think you just take it day by day. It's like you try to be in the best mood possible. You're happy for everybody. You're upset when people do something like poorly or whatever for them, and you just like you enjoy it. But it is kind of quick. It's crazy because if a guy would transfer in college, like dudes would be dapping him up, tearing up, like, man, I don't know if I'm ever going to see this guy again. Whereas in pro ball, it's like I've seen guys go from one clubhouse to the other clubhouse. Like it's you see him in a week or whatever it is. So it's a little bit different. And like Edwin Rios is on this team here. I played with him for a year as well, and it's like seeing him like it was yesterday. I hadn't seen him for 3 years, and then you see him, you dap him up, you have a conversation. It's like you never had a day off, and so that's kind of what the difference is.
Other interesting point I wanted to ask you about. You and I were discussing off air Missouri, where they fit in the kind of the landscape of college baseball now, and it does seem like in the SEC they just have not caught any traction, especially compared to where they were. Can you attribute that to anything in particular, or what do you attribute that to, and what is the solution, if any, for the Tigers going forward?
I feel like a little bit of consistency as far as staff goes. Like they brought in Carrick Jackson, who was back from when I was there. He was actually he did recruiting, he did outfield stuff, and I love him. He's the same way. Like he could bring any recruit in, and he could talk guys' ears off and make them want to be a Missouri Tigers. So I think you give him a handful of years and you give him time to build the program. I just don't want to see any more turnover. Like, not that they care what my opinion is, but I just don't want to see a ton of turnover because you can't build a culture that way. They give a coach who's like, okay, like I'm going to create a culture of guys who play hard, do this, whatever. Then they fire him after 3 years. The new coach comes in and goes, I want all 6'5" guys who can hit the ball over the moon. It's like, okay, now our philosophy is we're going to get big physical guys and we're going to be, strikeout or home run type of players. And it's like, there's just too many philosophies that have gone through Missouri. And it's like, I would like to see them, whatever Carrick decides the philosophy is, let it build for 4 or 5 years and let people see it flourish. Because you go to LSU, you go to these schools that have these coaches. Tim Corbin's been around at Vanderbilt forever. Whatever the Vitello, you know what you're getting into when you're a recruit. You're like, hey, I kind of fit that mold. That's where I want to go. And so you kind of get the best players in the mold that you have created. Whereas in Missouri, it's if you're going to Missouri's campus, you're like, okay, I don't know what the mold is. I don't know if I fit, but Carrick's telling me I fit. That's where I'm going to go. Like, I just don't think it works as well.
They call him Big Z for obvious reasons. Rob ZASTRYZNY joining us here on Main Street Sports today. Again, Rob 4-0 with a 2.45 ERA, a pair of saves in 23 appearances, 30 strikeouts in 22 innings, 5 walks. What are you doing well right now?
With the ABS being here, which the automatic ball strike system, it's a little smaller of a strike zone than what they're getting in the MLB or even in AA. And so the philosophy here has to be attacking the zone and letting your defense work. And if you can get ahead, you can strike guys out. The problem is you play guys like Tyler Black on our team or Jackson Holiday on Norfolk's team who have a great plate recognition. You can't nibble. You can't throw balls and get swings because they're just not going to go. So if you want to get guys to swing, you got to keep it on the plate as long as possible. Like if you're throwing a slider, it's got to be a strike for all the way, and then at the very end become a ball. And so I think that's what I've done well is just attack kind of the center of the zone and let my stuff play in zone. And it's definitely worked because you see guys come up from AA and they're like, okay, I'm gonna start this ball and throw 2 inches off the plate. And then the guy just doesn't swing. They fall behind 2-0, and then they have to throw a fastball on the plate, and it gets hit forever. But just being around as long as I have, I know what my stuff does, and I know what I want it to do. And so I'm just trying to do all of that in the strike zone.
And it can't stay a strike too long because it will get hit, right?
Yeah, it will get hit. And the game has changed a lot. Baseball is becoming a lot better. And I say that as someone who's been here this is my 12th year. When I first got in, if you threw 2 pitches for a strike, you're going to AA and you're going to have success. And now it's like you got to have 2+ pitches, which means above league average. And you got to throw them for strikes. You got to throw them for balls when you need to throw them for balls. And you need to have a 3rd pitch that you can set up the other 2 pitches. And it's just the game has gotten so well. They evaluate talent so well. And even the college game, I went and watched, and it's my agent's son and Vance Honeycutt, who's supposed to be a first-round pick. These guys are so much better than the college players when I played. Like the Alex Bregmans are elite. They're fantastic. But even these guys, they're getting like 7 or 8 hole guys can all hit homers. Whereas back in my day, the 7 and the 8 hole were the shortstop and the second baseman, and they played defense and ran a little bit, and that was it. Just baseball's gotten so much better, and that has filtered up now to every level.
Rob, I got to ask you, you mentioned time in the bullpen out here. What is the craziest story that you could potentially tell us about the fans near the bandbox or in the outfield? What's the wildest thing maybe, I guess within reason, considering this is a radio show after all, what's the craziest thing maybe you can recall during your time in the pen?
I don't really have super crazy things that happened. I kind of like this stadium in comparison to other ones because they do have the bandbox. They have the Coors Light deck. And everybody is getting absolutely hammered out there, which is fantastic, but they stay there. And they're all drunk in the certain areas where you want to be drunk, and you have a good time, and the music's blaring, and there's guys and girls everywhere. They're having a good time. Some of the other minor league stadiums, they hand you a beer, and they tell you to go back to your seat. And those are the ones where you start to run into trouble. You start to run into the drunk fans. But the funniest thing we got going now is the net now goes all the way out to kind of close to the bullpen. So what I do is every foul ball I get, I grab it and I take it to the net, and I hand it to a kid through the net. And so they obviously can't get the ball, and they have to work the ball over all the way to the end of the net. And it's usually takes about a half inning, and the whole stands get into it. And you got drunk people from the bar yelling at it. It's one of the funniest things that you can do here.
Nice little ballpark wrinkle, I suppose.
Yeah.
Okay, so what is the wildest thing that you've experienced in another stadium?
Another stadium? We're in Jacksonville, 2021, and the net backs up. So you're sitting watching the game, and there's just a little net right here. And we had a kid, I don't know what his problem was, but he's like 11 years old. He reached through the net and he grabbed my teammate's hair and would not let go. Like, it was just death grip on him. Like we had to get security. We were trying to separate the two. Like it was terrible. And the other one was in Jacksonville as well.
A theme,
apparently.
Yeah.
A 15-year-old Duval County put his glove on the wall behind him, and we were sitting there, and then they're like, "Hey, get so and so going." He turned around, his glove was gone. Kid had taken and ran off his glove. Thankfully, the usher saw him and chased him down and got it back, but just stole it and ran off.
Couple good ones from the greater
quality.
Jacksonville area.
Florida man, right?
Yeah. Florida man
Florida
struck.
man.
They breed them at a young age down there.
Well, I stay off social media for the most part. Like, I'm pretty active on Instagram. I post a picture of baseball or my wife. I have like a 2-word caption and life goes on. I stopped tweeting after that year because there was one day, it was just a horrible day. It was the day the kid like grabbed the guy's hair. and the kids were acting obnoxious. They were doing whatever, which is fine. Like, they're having fun. I don't care. And I just tweeted, there's like a trend going around. It's like, good morning to everyone except for, UT Knoxville fans. Good morning to everyone, whatever. And I just tweeted, like, good morning to everyone except for parents who let their kids yell at the bullpen for all 9 innings. And it went super viral because everyone who's ever played baseball is like, oh, that's hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
So it goes super viral. I'm like, oh, that's cool. Like, tweet took off. And then about 2 days later, all the people, like, you have the best job in the world and you're complaining about kids, came after me. And like, hey, Marlins, you should release this guy. And I was like, I'm done with social media now.
The internet got you at that point.
Well, that's how it always goes. Like, I've gone viral a couple times. So when Soler hit the homer in Houston, I tweeted out a true story that he hit a homer off me in Omaha one time that went so far that he came and apologized to me the next day. Like, he had to actually be like, hey, man, I'm so sorry. And I played with Soler for years before that, so we had a good laugh about it and moved on. So I tweeted that out, and it went crazy viral. But that's how anything viral goes. It's like 2 days of overwhelming positivity.
And then a backlash.
And then about 6 weeks of everyone being like, who do you think you are? I don't know how it gets that way.
How far did that ball go?
So I don't think you guys have ever been to Omaha, but there's the stands and then a concourse and then the locker rooms. And that's about 510 feet. So it landed right about 485, 490, and took 2 hops into the parking lot. The clubby went and picked up the ball and said they measured it like 700 feet off bounces all the way through the parking lot. It was incredible.
Well, to be fair, though, again, it was Jorge Soler. Yeah. And I said when he was on that run for the Braves that if he wasn't playing baseball, he'd have probably been playing stand-up defensive end for Alabama or something. I mean, that guy's a specimen. I'm not sure that there's any real shame in giving one up to him. But
No. I remember when I got drafted, I showed up to spring training, and I was 6'3" when I got drafted, one of the bigger guys. And it was the first thing I noticed. I was like, okay, everybody in pro ball's my height. And then I got to him, and I was like, not everyone looks like that, right? Like, no. That's Soler.
That's Soler.
He's different. And I was like, yes, he sure is.
He is without a doubt different. Rob, you mentioned you've been up and back a little bit throughout your career. And the one thing, we talked with Rick Sweet a few weeks ago. I've had the fortune to talk to other folks in minor league baseball. And the one thing that coaches and managers try to tell players is when you go up, you don't have to do anything differently. What you're doing here that gets you up is good enough when you go up there. Have you found that to be the case?
I think so. And like I said, baseball's changed a lot. I debuted in 16 and 2016 with the Cubs, and I went up, and it was like, I'm just going to treat it like normal. And it was good, but I also had the best team in baseball around me at the time. And so I didn't really get a good look at it then, but now AAA has gotten so good. Like, everybody in the lineup, like the lineup boards are there. I'd say 90% of the people on those boards have played in the big leagues or are going to play there very soon. And so there's not a lot of difference between the two levels. The only thing that I will say is different, because it is a different level. It's the MLB. They're the best players in the world. Is they just show up and do it every single day. And it is amazing, right? Like, a perfect example is like Christian Yelich. Christian Yelich wins an MVP. He's one of the best players in the world. And then hits 250 over a couple months, and everyone's like, man, he's struggling. It's like, that guy has to stay at this crazy MVP caliber level, and he always does. And it's like these guys, William Contreras, Willie Adames, all those guys, they might have weeks where they cannot find a way on base, and they always find a way to like make up for that and more. And it is just amazing to me, because slumping in any sport is just what happens. Like you're mentally not there physically. Like, a lot of times, a lot of people don't realize this is like, you have like a small minor hip thing or low back thing, and it throws everything off. Your timing, your swing is slower, and like, you can't compensate for that when guys are throwing 97, 98 miles an hour. And so for me, the biggest difference is like, you can catch a team on an off week, you can catch a team on an off series more in AAA. In the big leagues, they don't really have off series because they can't afford it. And like, you don't really have series off or weeks off, or like, hey, Rob, you're facing the bottom of the lineup. I'm like, okay, good. Like, everyone in the bottom of the lineup in the big leagues can take you deep to all sides of the field.
Rob ZASTRYZNY joining us on Main Street Sports today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. Are you up tonight?
Yeah, I'm available tonight.
Okay.
I'll be available. I've been throwing usually 3 times a series, but I'm going to try to go a little bit longer the next time, so they try to give me a little bit of time off. I threw 1.1 the other day, and so I'll either throw today or tomorrow.
Heck yeah.
Look for the big guy out here at First Horizon
Thank
Park
you,
this
brother.
weekend against the Bats. We appreciate you, Rob.
Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely.
Very nice to meet you guys.
When we come back to Main Street Sports Today, presented by TOA of Columbia, we'll continue talking a little baseball with the Braves and other major league stuff. Stay with us when we return to the Lee Company studios.
Wild horses are coming to Franklin. The Mustang Heritage Spectacular. 4 days of celebrity freestyle, liberty training, trick riding, and extreme Mustang makeover. Plus the shopping. Over 100 vendor spaces with clothing, food, home goods, and things you can't find anywhere else. All that and celebrity signings at a music stage too. June 20th through 23rd at Williamson County Ag Expo Park. Don't miss a moment with a weekend pass. MustangHeritageFoundation.org for tickets.
Hello, race fans, and welcome to Nashville Superspeedway.
That's right, guitars and fast cars right here in Music City. This summer, NASCAR is back at the Nashville Superspeedway. Get your tickets now to watch your favorite driver take on the 1.33 miles of concrete chaos. Visit NashvilleSuperspeedway.com to lock in your spot June 28th through the 30th for the Ally 400 race weekend.
Whether you're an athlete or a weekend warrior, when it comes to your performance, don't settle for anything less than excellence. We're proud to announce that Mid-Tennessee Bone and Joint Clinic is now Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, where we are redefining sports medicine and orthopedics. Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance's team of expert sports medicine physicians understands the unique demands of your body. TOA Columbia specializes in personalized orthopedic care, offering state-of-the-art treatments for everything from sports injuries to joint replacements. Learn more at toacolumbia.com.
Custom Stone Handler supplies over 600 distributors and suppliers with quality stone products. Along with River Stone, we produce and distribute over 100 building, landscape, and other bulk products. Our goal is to provide quality products, service, and partnerships to ensure our customers' success. We firmly believe that the measure of any person or company is how they treat other people and customers. Give them a call at 931-490-4990 or visit CustomStonehandlers.com.
Nashville South's baseball is back in Hit City for the 2024 season. Spend your nights and weekends at the ballpark with weekly giveaways, fireworks shows, throwback deals, live music, and more. Top talent will take the field at First Horizon Park against the AAA Minnesota Twins, Baltimore Orioles, Atlanta Braves, St. Louis Cardinals, Cincinnati Reds, and more. Tickets start at just $10 and are available now at NashvilleSounds.com. We will see you in Hit City.
With Lee Company technology, the best handymen are hands-off. Lee Company techs have been using visual findings and other smart technology tools for years to add transparency and virtually take customers along. You see what we see, whether we're in a crawl space or on a roof. With Lee Company, technology helps us help you, no matter what's happening in the world or at your house.
We thrive under the lights. A city of performers. Putting on one heck of a show. Headlining night after night. Welcome to Smashville.
June 7, 2011, Alex Gonzalez's fourth inning leadoff home run was one of just two Atlanta hits of Florida starter Brad Hand and relievers Edward Mujica and Ryan Webb. But it was all the offense they need as Tommy Hanson and the Oventboro combo teamed for a 4-hit shutout in a 1-0 Braves win over the host Marlins. Gonzalez spent the first 8 years of his 16-year career with the Marlins and was a 1999 National League All-Star with Florida. That was this day in Braves history. It's always nice when you can victimize a former team. So
a little revenge game, right?
there we go. Good day for Alex Gonzalez there in a Braves win. Braves got a couple of home runs yesterday, one from Adam Duvall, one from Marcell Ozuna, and Ronaldo Lopez went 6 innings, struck out 7 as the Braves won 5-2 to open their 4-game series in D.C. yesterday. So, for at least a day, all is good.
A 1-day reprieve for the Braves. But
momentum is your next day starter, right?
Yep.
And generally speaking, the Braves starter today has been pretty good. Chris Sale 8-1 with a 3.06. Now, it was his last time out that he got knocked around pretty good by Oakland at Truist Park. So I'm sure he'll be a little motivated by that one to get that one out of his system. But,
maybe just go back to what Rob said. Maybe he had a little hip. Maybe he slept on the wrong side of the bed and nobody knew, and just that little bit was enough to throw him off. Because you tell me that guy puts up those numbers versus that team.
Yeah.
And that's going to be one of those that you'll look back at the end of the season and say, what happened here?
Yeah. And it's interesting that Rob said that, because the margin of error at that level is just that thin.
Yeah.
And they are the best at what they do. And, over 162 games or over, 30 starts or whatever, you're not always going to be your best. And, some of us have a harder time remembering that than others, I think. But it's certainly something to be remembered. I mean, every game isn't going to be an A+ performance. And so, and again, while there isn't a whole lot of room for error in baseball, there's more room for error in baseball because there are so many games. So,
that's the frustrating thing about baseball. You're right, is you play 162 games, so you're like, okay, one game here, one game there. What's the big deal? So in the grand scheme of things, you got this massive kind of macro-looking level. But then when you get in the game, kind of like you're talking about and like Rob just mentioned, man, you're talking razor-thin margins. One pitch, just a millimeter here, a millimeter there, and it could either be hit out of the ballpark or it could be fouled off or it could be strike three.
Entirely.
Yeah. I mean, so that's just crazy to think about. And then that's what makes the postseason so fun, obviously, is a game that the margins are so small. The drama is finally magnified at that point. So that's what makes that postseason so much fun. But, Sale going I feel confident in history would indicate we get a better version than the last time we saw.
Than we saw on Saturday. What you're saying, Wade, is it's a game of inches.
Some would say famous locker room. Some would say for sure. So
absolutely. Jake Irvin going for the Nationals in this one, 3-5 with a 3.39 ERA for them. Game time again is.
I just had it 5:45. Yep.
There we go. Odd starts, which I mean, I guess it's 6:45 in DC, but still, it's a little odd. It's a lot. Your guys going to the West Coast, taking on the Angels.
8:38 start time tonight. Talk about odd start times.
So they start at 8:38 tonight and at 9:07 tomorrow.
Yep. 2 words: national TV. I guess comes into play there. Kind of like. We'll maybe get into NBA talk later, but their tip-off time is listed at 7:37 last night, which I love when they have those random starts. And you're like, no way is this going to start, at that time. And then you look down and you're like, 7:07, here we go. So 8:38 tonight. Yeah, West Coast swing coming up. They got the Angels for a few, and then they go to San Francisco for a couple. And we shall see.
Framber on the bump tonight.
Again, kind of like Sale in the sense you maybe feel pretty confident going into tonight's game. Take nothing for granted though with this team the way they've been playing. So
man. We've talked a little bit about the White Sox. And I guess we'll talk a little bit more about it because they lost again last night to visiting Boston.
Ooh.
The last I saw was 14-2. I don't know if it wound up that way or not. A friend of mine posted something on Facebook about being at the game and promptly got trashed. Dude, that team's awful. And yeah, they are. Again, 14-2 they lost to the Red Sox, dropping their 14th straight game. And I don't know what more there is to say about the White Sox and what we've already said.
I mean, I'm not going to do the math off the top of my head, but they got 15 wins right now. And we talked about how bad that some of the records were in that division last year. I mean, we could be talking all-time bad.
15-48. They have won 15 of 63 ball games. That's less than 1 out of every 4.
Yeah, 238 winning percentage at the moment. They're a cool 26 games back in the Central. I do not like their chances to come back and win the Central. And yeah, they've won 14 in a row. Is that the number?
Yes, 14.
Man.
14 in a row. They are the only team in the American League. They are the only team in Major League Baseball that has not scored at least 200 runs. 186.
The good news for them is they're going.
That's good news?
The only good news
Okay.
is just based on the law of averages. The Cleveland Spiders went 20 and 134, but that I'm sad to report though that was back in 1899. Go to the real modern era was the Tigers in 2003 when they won 43 games, and they ended up with a better winning. That's a better winning percentage than what the White Sox have currently. So
they got to win another 28 games.
Got to win 28 more games. The worst one since the 60s. Some of these other ones were in the early 1900s, but in 62 the Mets went 40 and 120. So they definitely have some.
15 and 48. And you said in 2003 the Tigers went 43. What is it? 43 and 129. 119.
Yep, 119. 47 games back. The Tigers finished that year. I'm looking for other notables here. 2018, not to be outdone. Also in 19, the Tigers went 47 and 114, so they're on this list a couple times. But the Orioles went 47 and 115 back in 2018. So there have been some bad teams recently, but most of these on this list were in the early part of the 1900s. So as far as recent history goes, yeah, the White Sox are trending toward an all-time bad season.
All-time level of putridness.
Woof.
Yeah. Let's think some brighter thoughts. Because that's bad.
Yeah, I'm in a dark headspace. I haven't just ran through that for our listeners there.
Mets and Phillies are playing this weekend in London.
Saw some of that in the pro shop. They had MLB Network on, and they were interviewing Schwarber and some of the guys earlier. They're getting ready to skip across the pond. It was cool. They had open practice today. That's why they were interviewing the guys. The fans were already at the ballpark, kind of cheering them on and stuff. So, or BP at least, but it looked like it was kind of a miniature practice they were holding.
They will play at London Stadium, which was built for the 2012 London Olympics. Currently, the home of the Premier League club West Ham United.
Okay.
Seats 62,500 for soccer and will seat a touch more for this weekend's baseball games. It's a lot of folks for a baseball game.
Healthy crowd. As the Mets and Phillies. Last year, it was the Cardinals and Cubs.
Yeah.
And they canceled the 2020 for COVID. But before that, in 19, you had the Yankees and the Red Sox. So they kicked it off with a big showdown. I guess Cardinals,
a banger,
Cubs. A banger. Cardinals, Cubs, pretty good. Mets, Phillies. Obviously, the Phillies have kind of held their end of the deal, but the Mets kind of not bringing it in terms of juice. But you got two major markets going over there, so the average London fan or London inhabitant would at least be familiar, presumably, with the Mets and Phillies, or at least the cities, at least. So
Sure.
maybe get another good crowd out there this weekend.
And if you are a fan of another NL East team, you might kind of be hoping that maybe this throws the Phillies out of their rhythm a little bit. They were off both yesterday and today. They'll play tomorrow and Sunday, obviously, and then I don't know when their schedule picks back up, but a couple of days off, that travel, it could be interesting, to see how they handle that. I think.
And the big talk, with Philadelphia is they played a very easy schedule thus far. They come back on Tuesday versus the Red Sox. That's in Boston. And then they get the Orioles. So two pretty good teams. Obviously, the Orioles a little bit better even, but they will be thrust back into it. They get to the meat of their schedule. I think it's later this month when they really kind of get things cranked up. Actually, I stand corrected. Phillies Braves not till July 5th. They kind of have other than that series versus the Orioles, depending on what you think about the Red Sox, other than that Orioles series, they kind of got some pretty winnable games between now and then. But yeah, July really cranks up. They got the Braves and the Dodgers back-to-back series.
Ranger Suarez going tomorrow for the Phillies. Sean Manaea for the Mets. Suarez 9-1 with a 1.70 ERA in that 12:10 Central Time start on Fox tomorrow for that one. Man, he's been pitching. And he had been good for the Phillies, but he's clearly taken his game to another level to this point this season, and really been a linchpin for their success. Jose Quintana 1-5 with a 5.17 going on Sunday for the Phillies, which is interesting. No, that must be the Mets. They must flip home on Saturday and Sunday because Taijuan Walker is with the Phillies and he's 3-1 with a 5.73. So home and home.
Actually, that is correct because I kind of browsing through that history. I did see that the Red Sox were the quote unquote home team one game and the Yankees were the other. Might as well, right?
Sure. Okay. Let's wrap up the first hour of Main Street Sports today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. And when we come back to the Lee Company studios of First Horizon Park, we'll be talking a little hoops as the NBA Finals got started last night, and not much drama in that one. Stay tuned when we come back.
We thrive under the lights. A city of performers. Putting on one heck of a show. Headlining night after night. Welcome to Smashville.
Whether you're an athlete or a weekend warrior, when it comes to your performance, don't settle for anything less than excellence. We're proud to announce that Mid-Tennessee Bone and Joint Clinic is now Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, where we are redefining sports medicine and orthopedics. Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance's team of expert sports medicine physicians understands the unique demands of your body. TOA Columbia specializes in personalized orthopedic care, offering state-of-the-art treatments for everything from sports injuries to joint replacements. Learn more at toacolumbia.com.
With Lee Company technology, the best handymen are hands-off. Lee Company techs have been using visual findings and other smart technology tools for years to add transparency and virtually take customers along. You see what we see, whether we're in a crawl space or on a roof. With Lee Company, technology helps us help you, no matter what's happening in the world or at your house.
Jones & Lang Sporting Goods here in Columbia has been outfitting teams, officials, and anybody else from T-ball to college for 50 plus years. Be sure and check them out at 931-388-8060 or online at jonesandlang.com. Jones & Lang Sporting Goods, the look of a winner.
Zion Christian Academy, zioneagles.org or 931-388-5731. You can schedule your appointment. Go tour their campus. It is beautiful over there, and you're definitely going to want to see it. Again, it's zioneagles.org. Give them a call, 931-388-5731, and schedule your tour today.
Piggly Wiggly, located in Neely's Mill Shopping Center, is Columbia's locally owned and operated Cost Plus 10 grocery store dedicated to serving the community with low prices and smiling faces. Piggly Wiggly offers fresh, hand-cut meats daily as well as daily hot plate lunches from their deli counter. You're certain to see smiling faces and a helping hand when you're here at Piggly Wiggly. Come by and check out our fresh produce, high-quality meats, and more. Down home, down the street, we'll see you at the Pig.
Nashville Sounds Baseball is back in Hit City for the 2024 season. Spend your nights and weekends at the ballpark with weekly giveaways, fireworks shows, throwback deals, live music, and more. Top talent will take the field at First Horizon Park against the AAA Minnesota Twins, Baltimore Orioles, Atlanta Braves, St. Louis Cardinals, Cincinnati Reds, and more. Tickets start at just $10 and are available now at NashvilleSounds.com. We will see you in Hit City.
Hour number 2 of the weekend update of Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, starts right now. I'm Maurice Patton, along with Wade Neely. I know you were out and about last night and probably didn't get to see much of Game 1 of the NBA Finals. I did not either. But, you know, the power of social media kind of allows you to keep up with a lot. Boston threatened to make this thing a blowout from the get. We're up by as many as 29, led 63-42 at the half. Luka, who finished with 30, rallied the Mavericks back, got it down to 8 before Boston eased to a 107-89 victory. And, you know, if you're Dallas, that's got to be concerning, doesn't it?
Got to be concerning, and you're right. They got it down to 8, and I was able to catch bits and pieces here and there, kind of moving about the stadium last night, and I saw it down to 8, and I said, uh-oh, we got a game here. And then I look back up, and it's back up to 20, and
no, we don't.
Boston took care of business last night, and the key from last night has got to be the play of Porzingis, who returns, and not only, and to me, and a lot of folks were curious how he would play, and I was certainly curious as well. Within the first 10 minutes, you could tell that he was kind of back to normal after missing so many games due to injury. And if that's the Porzingis that comes back, that's what makes Boston so lethal, is that extra threat that you've got besides Tatum and Brown. Right, and having him at that level is that, I'm not saying it's game over, but man, that's going to be a deadly recipe that I don't know that Dallas was prepared for.
Yeah, and we talked about who the extra piece was going to be aside from Luka and Kyrie for Dallas. Well, one, Kyrie wasn't an extra piece, but two, another one didn't necessarily reveal themselves. Plus, as you said, Porzingis coming up with the game that he came up with in Game 1. You thought Boston was going to be tough to beat in this series, particularly at home. And they certainly didn't do anything last night to make you think otherwise.
No, and I think Porzingis had, 18 in the first half. I mean, he went nuclear for a stretch there. And so much so that, I mean, you're seeing chatter on the web at that point in time, like, hey, this is your final, he's going to be your finals MVP. And he didn't even start the game last night. I mean, he came off the bench and delivered that performance. And you're right. Dallas, unless they're going to get maybe not even nuclear levels, but they're going to have to get the role players to step up, especially considering they're either going to have the role players play at a high level, which I guess traditionally role players, they say don't play well on the road. But if they're not going to play at a high level, they're going to have to get MVP type performances from Luka and Kyrie, and we didn't see both of those guys deliver that performance. Luka stepped up pretty well, but Kyrie let a little be desired. But again, at one point you're thinking, man, this could be a really close competitive series. And like I said last night, 8 points, you're saying, okay, here we go. And then in the blink of an eye, they got sliced and diced last night.
They got sliced and diced, and in a situation like that, sometimes it's best to leave sleeping dogs lying, right? Well, Kyrie decided not to.
Oh,
I thought it was going to be a little bit louder in here.
Oh,
after the game, after the 18-point loss.
Why poke the bear, right?
I just don't know what it is that you accomplish with that of a positive nature.
The only thing I can think of is either a challenge to either your teammates or maybe even yourself. Maybe Kyrie's like, well, if I talk the talk, I got to walk the walk. And that's a way of kind of just forcing himself into playing a little bit better because, why poke the bear at that point after the performance we saw last night?
Oh, game 2 is Sunday. Is that right?
Yes, Sunday, and I think a little bit earlier start. Not as I take that back. 7 o'clock.
7 o'clock.
Not even the 7:37 that we saw last night. So it'll be loud. It'll be raucous.
How loud?
Yeah, it'll be extra loud as Boston will look to go up 2-0 in that series. And they hit 7 threes in the first quarter last night. I mean, they kind of blitzed them early.
Mm-hmm.
Dallas was kind of reeling, it seemed like. And then by the time they got their footing, seemed like they expended a lot of energy just to get it back competitive. And then once they did make it competitive, Boston kind of went back on the offensive. And that was, at that point, all she wrote.
And, we've seen that on numerous occasions in numerous basketball games. You get down big early, and you have to expend so much energy getting back into the game that final push, you just don't necessarily have anything for it. And so, I would say that the manner in which Dallas lost last night, they've got a lot of work to do going forward too. We talked about this series. Be nice to steal one on the road. I don't know that that's necessarily how it's going to go. Not this time anyway. It maybe 5. I don't know.
Yeah, it certainly feels like Boston. I mean, just listen. Every starter finishes in double figures for the Celtics last night. Then we mentioned they got 20 from Porzingis in only 21 minutes. Didn't need him to play really any more minutes at that point.
And why push him?
Exactly. On the other end of the spectrum, you got 14 from Washington, 5 points from Daniel Jones Jr., who hit, I think, either the first basket or the first 3. So some of those came early. And then 8 points from Gafford. We mentioned the 12 from Kyrie, and we mentioned 30 from Luka. Luka also had an unusually off night, if you will, in terms of his playmaking ability because he only had 1 assist last night. And that was kind of another kind of head scratcher. I mean, this is a guy that not averaging a double-double, but he's a threat to go for a double-double every night. And the fact he ends up with 1 assist, had 4 turnovers, kind of goes back to my point. They can get by if Luka and Kyrie both have insane games with just a little production from the bench or a little production from the rest of the starters. But if one of those guys is not A+, like we saw last night, I mean, they were dead in the water. I mean, Dallas puts up 89 points. I don't know that any team is really going to fancy their chances to win many playoff games, let alone in the finals, only scoring 89 like they did last night.
Exactly. Hurley to Lakers continues to be a storyline aside from the NBA Finals. There's a piece on CBSSports.com mentioning 11 coaches have gone straight from the NBA to first-time NBA. I'm sorry, from the NCAA to become first-time NBA coaches over the past 30 years, and it typically has not gone well. You know, I don't want to get too much off into the weeds, but I think this kind of backs my train of thought on this. I'm just not sure this is the move Hurley wants to make. You said it, particularly this team.
You would think, and I certainly have thought that. I did have a buddy that was watching our show yesterday, and he texted me after we went off air, and he said, "I got 2 words: not lifetime contract, but fully guaranteed," is what he said. So they're offering him a fully guaranteed contract, a lot of money, and again, that chance to kind of get minted in the NBA level, to be able to go to whatever NBA job you want, certainly go back to any college job you want. Interesting piece that I found is. We've talked obviously about J.J. Redick being in the mix for this. But Dan Patrick had a segment, I believe it was yesterday, that J.J. Redick brought Dan Hurley on his podcast not too long ago. And he wondered if J.J. didn't kind of formally or informally take himself out of the running, because it kind of, as we talked about, it's kind of a high-level basketball podcast. And it's almost like, hey, we maybe thought we liked you, but we really like what this guy said. So that was kind of the speculation that was kind of wondering from Dan Patrick when he was talking about that interview occurred back on April 19th on that podcast. So
you think JJ might have torpedoed his own ship?
If he was interested in the job, that's what Dan Patrick seems to be wondering. You know, it's like, hey, you might have inadvertently taken yourself out of the running here before you even got in the running officially, perhaps.
Billy Donovan and Brad Stevens are the only coaches who went straight from the NCAA to the NBA that have a career winning percentage, and neither of them has won an NBA championship. Besides that, you know, the path is littered with guys like John Beilein.
Yep. Only coach, by the way, crazy stat about Beilein. He's the only coach. He's coached at every single level of college basketball, from JUCO to the NBA. D3, D2, NAI, D1, NBA. The only coach that has ever done that. That was why a lot of folks speculated he took that Cavs job just to kind of check that box. It was the one thing that he had not done. He pretty much topped out all he'd done in Michigan, you know, national runner-up while he was there. Why not? And but yeah, it did not end well for a variety of reasons for Coach Beilein there.
14-40 did not end well. Yeah. Fred Hoiberg, the mayor. Who else? Reggie Theus, Mike Montgomery, who left a really great situation at Stanford to take over the Warriors and went 68-96 before getting the plug pulled on him. Leonard Washington, Lon Kruger, Tim Floyd, Carlesimo, and so the odds are not really in Hurley's favor on this thing.
Yeah, and so that kind of just boils it down to the question of what do you value, right? Do you value your legacy or your cachet? Because if that's what you really put a lot of your value into, then you stay at UConn, right? But if you value, potentially ego, potentially certainly a lot of money, but also we got to circle back to that big thing that we always talk about. Where does NIL and where does the transfer portal fatigue play into the mix? Because, man, it seems like a lot of these coaches are not pleased with a lot of their situations. I know Izzo has been really vocal. He's done everything but retire over the situation. And so haven't heard anything from Hurley, a comment about that, but you just wonder in the back of his mind, man, yeah, it'd be so much easier just going to the pros and not having to worry about any of that.
Yeah, I mean, there is that, and we've seen that in other sports, and we've heard other coaches say that, Chip Kelly among others, some obviously that is, I don't even know if it's an X factor, but it's a factor, but I don't know.
And the interesting thing too is when you're a coach at that level, you pretty much at least in your own mind, view your program as a professional program. So you're one step shy of being a professional. So it just feels like you've heard stories over the years of the coaches, whether it's football or basketball, having to not worry about recruiting or having to not worry about, at a smaller school, where we're going to take our team to eat, all these type of decisions that go into it, just not having to do those little tiny day-to-day things. Sometimes that does play a factor for these guys. So I don't know if it does with Hurley, but it will be very interesting to see, because it seems like the Lakers have kind of almost boxed themselves in a tiny corner already. It's either going to be Redick or Hurley. And if neither one of those comes to fruition, I really don't know that they can win, quote unquote, the hire unless they really surprise us.
Yeah. And the point that you made yesterday about there being 6 days between Game 7 of the NBA Finals and the draft. I mean, if Hurley's not going to, if Redick isn't going to do anything until after the finals, do you want to wait that long? And if he's not going to do anything until after the finals and then he doesn't take it, then you are really in that proverbial corner, like you said. So this is intriguing.
Yeah, you can't go into the draft without a coach, presumably. I mean, you obviously you can, but it doesn't seem like that's a great strategy.
It doesn't seem like it's a great strategy for a team that already kind of feels like maybe it's lost its way a little bit. Yeah, so intriguing, to say the least. Let's go ahead and take a break here on Main Street Sports Today. We will talk a little college baseball when we come back with Chris Lee of Southeastern 14. Stay with us when we come back to the Lee Company Studios after this.
We thrive under the lights. A city of performers, putting on one heck of a show. Headlining night after night. Welcome to Smashville.
Whether you're an athlete or a weekend warrior, when it comes to your performance, don't settle for anything less than excellence. We're proud to announce that Mid-Tennessee Bone and Joint Clinic is now Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, where we are redefining sports medicine and orthopedics. Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance's team of expert sports medicine physicians understands the unique demands of your body. TOA Columbia specializes in personalized orthopedic care, offering state-of-the-art treatments for everything from sports injuries to joint replacements. Learn more at toacolumbia.com.
With Lee Company technology, the best handymen are hands-off. Lee Company techs have been using visual findings and other smart technology tools for years to add transparency and virtually take customers along. You see what we see, whether we're in a crawl space or on a roof. With Lee Company, technology helps us help you, no matter what's happening in the world or at your house.
Jones & Lang Sporting Goods here in Columbia has been outfitting teams, officials, and anybody else from T-ball to college for 50 plus years. Be sure and check them out at 931-388-8060 or online at jonesandlang.com. Jones & Lang Sporting Goods, the look of a winner.
Zion Christian Academy, zioneagles.org or 931-388-5731. You can schedule your appointment. Go tour their campus. It is beautiful over there, and you're definitely going to want to see it. Again, it's zioneagles.org. Give them a call, 931-388-5731, and schedule your tour today.
Piggly Wiggly, located in Neely's Mill Shopping Center, is Columbia's locally owned and operated Cost Plus 10 grocery store dedicated to serving the community with low prices and smiling faces. Piggly Wiggly offers fresh, hand-cut meats daily, as well as daily hot plate lunches from their deli counter. You're certain to see smiling faces and a helping hand when you're here at Piggly Wiggly. Come by and check out our fresh produce, high-quality meats, and more. Down home, down the street, we'll see you at the Pig.
Nashville South's baseball is back in Hit City for the 2024 season. Spend your nights and weekends at the ballpark with weekly giveaways, fireworks shows, throwback deals, live music, and more. Top talent will take the field at First Horizon Park against the AAA Minnesota Twins, Baltimore Orioles, Atlanta Braves, St. Louis Cardinals, Cincinnati Reds, and more. Tickets start at just $10 and are available now at NashvilleSounds.com. We will see you in Hit City.
Welcome to Protein Snack Shop, your destination for healthy and delicious low-carb snacks. Our specialty lies in providing protein-packed desserts that are perfect for those following a keto diet. Our products are made with high-quality ingredients, ensuring that you can satisfy your cravings without compromising your health goals. From a variety of flavors and options to choose from, you can enjoy guilt-free snacking while staying on track with your fitness journey. Don't miss out on our limited time offer. Discover Protein Snack Shop today.
The Weekend Update continues here on Main Street Sports today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. I'm Maurice Patton, along with Wade Neely. We're going to talk a little college baseball, and a little college baseball is about all UConn played down at Tallahassee today.
Oh,
Seminoles 24-4.
Oh, that's going to leave a mark. George Springer, not happy with his former Huskies there. That's tough. 24-4.
24-4.
Oof.
Yeah. Woof. That is the only final we have to this point. Later today, we will have Kansas State playing at Virginia and West Virginia at North Carolina in game one of the Super Regionals. Currently going in a back and forth affair. Tennessee leads Evansville 4-2. It was UT 1-0, Evansville 2-1, and now the Vols 4-2 in that one in the fourth. So, to talk a little more Super Regional action, we have Chris Lee from Southeastern 14 joining us. Chris, so Texas is having a welcome to the SEC party. Oklahoma is having a welcome to the SEC party. Is Southeastern 14 having any kind of a party to go from 14 to 16, or what are y'all's plans?
Oh, we don't have time to party. We just work.
That's a good tagline, if nothing else, Chris.
Standing on business. Southeastern 14.
I stand corrected. Yeah.
There we go.
We may get around to some fun this summer. We'll see about that.
Chris, before we get into Evansville and Tennessee, 24-4.
Yeah.
How much of a shock? And I mean, I know Florida State is traditionally good. I know Link Jarrett's done a great job of kind of getting that program back on its feet. But goodness gracious, that's crazy.
Yeah, I didn't think Connecticut was probably one of the stronger teams in the field. Now, I haven't said that. I didn't watch Connecticut. I'm just looking at some computers I like, and they were, a little further off some of these teams, and maybe that's irrelevant. You got matchups, you got pitching, those kind of things. But I mean, it's kind of one program that's been there and done that. And I don't know if you've ever been to Tallahassee for a super regional, but it's like Sahara Desert hot this time of year. So how used is Connecticut to that? I don't know.
It might not be the best environment for a team from the Northeast, huh?
Maybe not. It might be a lot of things.
That's wild. What are your thoughts about this Evansville Tennessee matchup? Again, Evansville was up at 1 2-1. I think Billy Amick hit a home run to put UT back up here in this one. But when you watched Evansville this past weekend go about their business over at East Carolina, you just kind of felt like this is a team that's playing with house money and they play loose anyway. I mean, they're not going to be overwhelmed by the environment at Lindsey Nelson, it doesn't feel like.
Yeah, maybe not. East Carolina is a tough place to play, but I think the problem is they're getting in a home run hitting contest, with the slow pitch softball team, basically, is what's going on at the moment. Tennessee's hit 3 today. You can't get into that kind of game with Tennessee, and that's not a good recipe for advancing.
Okay. What else do you see in these other two tonight? Tennessee being the only SEC team that's in action today.
Yeah, I think that is the biggest mismatch on paper is Tennessee Evansville. I think the others, I think Oregon can pitch enough. Did you say today or did you say for the SEC?
Today, first of all, and
Yeah, I haven't. To be honest, Mo, I spend most of my time and my bandwidth on SEC teams. No, I think West Virginia is interesting because J.J. Weatherholt is a big time draft prospect, maybe a top 5 guy off the board guy, and he missed part of their season, so they're interesting. North Carolina is interesting because I think that's a team that could be in on the left side of the bracket in Omaha, and they hit a lot of bombs. So I mean, gosh, you could see an offensive half of the College World Series there with Virginia, Florida State, North Carolina, and Tennessee. That would be a lot of home runs between those 4 teams. So I'm kind of watching to see who advances from that side, and I think the other 4 SEC games are all tomorrow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Georgia, North Carolina State. You got Kentucky and Oregon State, as you were mentioning, Florida at Clemson, and Oregon at Texas A&M.
Yeah. And I think of those, I think NC State feels like the team that matches up best with an SEC team with the chance to pull an upset because they really got good quality starting pitching last week, and Georgia did not. I felt like when Georgia brought its Friday night starter back to try to close a game 3 for Georgia, I was like, who are they going to pitch tomorrow? Like they pitched 2 guys that barely threw all year and a guy who just come back from injury. And that was like, all right, you better close that out now or I don't know what tomorrow's going to look like. Georgia did close it, but it concerns me a little bit going into this weekend. Oregon pitched really well last weekend, and Texas A&M, which was my pre-tournament pick to win the whole thing, hasn't hit the way it did, say, in April and early May. So that's one I'm watching. Obviously, Clemson, Florida, and then Kentucky, Oregon State's really interesting because Oregon State also pitched last weekend and has got a lot of Omaha pedigree, whereas Kentucky's just trying to get there for the first time. That is a hard hurdle to overcome a lot of years. And so I think there's some interesting things to watch in all those.
Hey, yeah, you know, we talked last week about Kentucky with you coming out of the bracket announcement, I guess, and you had kind of expressed your doubts about Kentucky. And as you said, trying to get to Omaha for the first time, obviously got to be a little easier to try to get to Omaha for the first time off your home field. But still, I don't know how much of those concerns that you had about the Wildcats went away this past weekend.
Well, they didn't go away because I don't usually base my opinion on a small 3-game sample size. But I will tell you this, one of my concerns was their starting pitching hadn't been as good outside of Trey Poozer. Mason Moore answered the bell in that regard last weekend. They got a reliever named Cameron O'Brien who's kind of stepped up and become, more of a shutdown bullpen arm after their closers kind of, faltered of late. In fact, he didn't even pitch in the regional. So, yeah, I guess I'm backtracking that a little bit. Kentucky did show some things that I wanted to see, like that they answered some of the doubts that I had. How much does that carry going forward? I don't know. I don't see them on par with Tennessee and Texas A&M and some of those teams. Look, there's nothing wrong with that. We mentioned 2 elite teams there, and I mean Kentucky had an elite season too. Don't get me wrong. I'm just not quite as sure about them because the way that they win in this day and age of college baseball is just constant home runs, and they're a great offensive club, but they're not that.
Yeah, Chris, could Kentucky potentially have had a worse draw? It feels like they should be the team that desperately would like a team like Evansville to punch that ticket to Omaha, where it feels like Tennessee might have been okay versus Oregon State, but it feels like Oregon State, Kentucky. Even odds makers have that almost kind of a toss up there, and for a lot of the reasons that you mentioned, and it feels like that mojo is not just all the way with Kentucky. So it feels like if they're going to make Omaha, they're going to have to earn it this weekend versus a really good team.
Yeah, I mean, Oregon State was the 15 seed in the tournament. I look back on that now a little bit, that the season they had and the way the roster's made up. And I think that might have been, they might have been underseeded in hindsight. But it is what it is. That's who they got. I mean, as for Tennessee, they got fortunate that they, drew the only 4 seed still alive in the tournament. Of course, that had nothing to do with anything under Tennessee's control. And I guess you could say, well, last year Tennessee got some pretty bad matchups, getting sent to Southern Miss for a super when that could have been in Knoxville. And also the Vols got sent to Clemson, which wasn't an easy draw for them. But they overcame both times. So sometimes those things even out over times. I guess for Tennessee, kind of it did this year in terms of drawing Evansville rather than what I thought would be Wake Forest or if not them, East Carolina.
On the other end, you kind of got into a little Texas A&M, especially. Do you still feel pretty strongly about them? Seems like they have waned just a touch, but they obviously have the goods. I'll be curious if you've reassessed or reevaluated your opinion of them after last weekend.
Yeah, I mean, I'd feel better if they were back to scoring a dozen runs a game or whatever they were doing, back a couple of months ago. I'm exaggerating, but I mean, they were just bludgeoning people. It's not been as much of that, but I still, when I'm looking at teams, it's like a puzzle. You take the thing apart, you assess the pieces for what they are, and then see how that fits all back together. I still feel like that's the most complete team out there. Some could argue that Tennessee's better, and they might be right, but I lean heavily on when you are trying to cover 27 innings, or in this case, maybe 18 innings over a weekend. How do the pieces look? They got Ryan Prager, who I think is a top 5 starting pitcher in the SEC. They got Evan Aschenbach, who threw over 60 innings, had an ERA of, I think, of $1.59, and was just a guy that you could throw 3 or 4 times or 3 or 4 innings at a time. And their starting pitching faltered, but Shane Sadeo, who was another one of their jumbo relievers, they've plugged him in that number 2 or number 3 role, and he's been really good. So now the question they had was starting pitching. I mean, presuming their offense comes back, and I think you look at the talent with Montgomery and Grahovac, and I mean, they 1 to 9. There's not just an easy out in that order. They got Caden Sorrell and a lot of dudes. You throw in the fact that throwing Sadeo in the rotation makes that stronger, and they got Aschenbeck to cover a multitude of sins if somebody falters for multiple innings at a time. And then they got a bunch of Brad Rudis types who are just, really good short relievers for an inning over 2, and they've got 4 or 5 of those. I just think Texas A&M, when I look at SEC teams, I don't know that, and you could look at ERA and things like that and say, well, the team ERA of this team was this and that team was that. Sometimes I throw that out because you're throwing guys that are going to be irrelevant in this mix that either, sometimes can escalate your ERA. It's really about having 5, 6, 7 arms in this type of format, and I think theirs are as good as anybody's.
Chris Lee of Southeastern 14 joining us here on Main Street Sports today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, as we talk super regional action this weekend. It always, particularly as offenses have really exploded, it all comes back to pitching, right?
Yeah. I mean, somewhat. I mean, I'm always a pitching over other things guy because, and I say this, it didn't always work out that way, Mo. You and I are Braves fans back, in the 90s. We know just because something, feels like it makes sense on paper doesn't always work out that way. But I'm always a guy, and you saw Ole Miss do this, and Ole Miss didn't have a great pitching staff, but 2 years ago, Ole Miss rode the same 2 guys. They just kept throwing out there over and over and over, and had a couple guys out of the bullpen. That was good enough. And I think A&M is that kind of team, except that their guys did that during the regular season, whereas Ole Miss has just kind of popped up during the postseason.
And that's kind of the issue from a pitching standpoint. You've seen these guys and you've seen them do it, but you've not necessarily seen them do it in these situations where it means as much as it does. this weekend, last weekend, next week.
Yeah.
And it,
Well,
you know, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say A&M did go to the College World Series 2 years ago, and you've got some guys back on that staff, Chris Cortez being one, Prager being one, who did throw a lot of innings in that format. So to top it off, that's a little bit of icing on the cake as guys that have been there and done that on that kind of stage.
Texas A&M, your favorite-ish.
Yeah.
Of these other 4 SEC teams, how many of them do you feel like get through ultimately?
Tennessee's going to get through. I'd be shocked if it doesn't, although Evansville's threatening a little bit as we do this. Tennessee's up 5-2 in the 5th. I think they get through. I would put my favorites in this order from the SEC. I would go Tennessee. I would go probably A&M. I would go probably after that Kentucky, Georgia, Florida in that order. I could argue, flipping Kentucky and Georgia. I think Kentucky got a tougher matchup in terms of just the quality of the team, but I think for Georgia, I'm just concerned about that pitching depth.
Clemson's had a tough time getting off their home field, though. Traditionally, well, of late in the supers.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they haven't been since 2011. They'd lost 5 straight regionals, so they got that monkey off the back. I just think Florida. No, look, Florida's got a lot of talent, but it is overwhelmingly inexperienced on the mound compared to some other teams. And maybe this time of year it doesn't matter. Maybe freshmen or sophomores by this point, but that is a very freshman-heavy staff. They got to rely on 5 or 6 freshmen probably to throw big innings. They did last weekend in the regional. And so is that repeatable? I don't know. That's where I have a question.
While we got you, obviously Vanderbilt flamed out last week. Speaking of Clemson, we've talked off air, offline. Not sure that Vanderbilt has ever dealt with the level of injuries, illness, unavailable talent that they did this year. I mean,
yeah,
is that a mulligan as far as that goes, or what is the feeling over on West End right now?
Oh, I think mulligan is probably pretty accurate about right now. In light of what they've done, which is he's gotten rid of 2 of his 3 assistants, including Mike Baxter. Mike Baxter was like family to him. He recruited him 20 years ago. He's been on staff for 7 years. When you're on that staff with Tim Corbin, it is in a lot of cases like a family. I think the spouses hang out, and look, that is a tough call to make. I don't know if you've ever been in a management position where you had to get rid of somebody you liked. I've been in a management position where I had to get rid of people I didn't necessarily like, and that wasn't easy. Getting rid of somebody that you're close to, that you recruited 20 years ago, that you gave their first chance in coaching, I think that had to be brutally hard for Tim Corbin. But the fact that they went out and did that he did that, I think that guy is really serious about winning. I think the upside of this team was a little more limited anyway. You go back, they didn't have a Rocker, a Leiter, a Carson Fulmer, an Austin Martin, a J.J. Blood. I mean, the star power on this team, it was as vacant of those kind of guys as any one of his teams as I've covered in the last 20 years. And so that's part of it. But, boy, they were relying on piecing it together with a lot of guys and platooning here and platooning there. And they lost some big guys, Maldonado, Dukanich. I mean, they lost 5 or 6 guys that really, really, really could have helped them. And that was part of it. But at the end of the day, when they put that back together, I look at the Tennessees, the A&Ms, those kind of teams. They just didn't have that kind of top-end star power. So I think in a way he gets a mulligan, but because of the injuries, but also now because I think he's made the changes that people begged him to make.
Chris Lee of Southeastern 14 joining us here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by TOA of Columbia. Do you have anything?
I was just going to say Vanderbilt is going to be the big question mark for me And then, Chris, obviously, so much has been mentioned about Texas and Oklahoma coming in. SEC baseball doesn't feel like it's going to get any easier. It's certainly probably going to get, if nothing else, as fans, more entertaining. But I'm real curious to see how this sport in particular kind of looks with those two new additions next year in your mind.
Yeah, I am too. You now have probably got 15 of the 16 teams that really care. I don't know what that number would have been. Well, I mean, put it on a 14 scale. I don't know what that number would have been a couple years ago, but it wouldn't have been 13 out of 14. And Missouri is the one where we all had the questions. But it's always been tougher than football in my mind. And now you see the sellouts, you see the resources going to it, you see the coaching salaries going up, you see the 6-figure amounts handed out in the portal to transfers. It's going to be super interesting because you got a lot of places that are really in on baseball that weren't necessarily 5 years ago.
Yeah, the growth of the league in that sport in particular feels like it's running wild right now at the moment.
Yeah, it really is. And adding Texas to it, which may or may not make a coaching change. I'm not sure where that stands. I hadn't checked the news in the last hour or two, but that'll be interesting to watch too, because I have a feeling they will be targeting some guys that are already coaching in this league.
Interesting times for sure. We will continue to keep up with the super regionals and see who makes it out to Omaha next week. And Chris Lee of Southeastern 14, we appreciate you spending some time with us this afternoon as always, and look forward to catching up with you again soon.
You bet. Thanks for having me, guys.
Thank you, Chris. Evansville has tied the game 5-5, Mo. Buckle up.
Buckle up.
Mid-fifth.
Long way to go, I guess.
Baby.
It's but to Chris's point though, I'm not sure that they want to get into a home run hitting contest with UT. They got to get them stopped at some point, because you feel like UT's arms at some point are going to stop them. So
yeah, you'd love, obviously, win at all costs, and you certainly will take whatever win you could potentially get today. But yeah, winning recipe for the next two games would not be trying to get into a slow pitch softball home run hitting contest, as Chris mentioned.
Not with the nation's leading home run hitting team. So, yeah. Good luck with that, Purple Aces. When we come back to the Lee Company studio of First Horizon Park, we'll get you ready for the weekend with the weekend update and the grab bag. Stay tuned on the other side of this break.
Are you the biggest race fan? Main Street Media and Rackley Roofing are teaming up to send a family of 4 to the Rackley Roofing 200 truck race at the Nashville Super Speedway on June 28th. All you have to do is head to your favorite Main Street Media site and click on the Rackley banner to win.
Of Columbia, I'm Maurice Patton.
They caught me napping, folks. I was out wandering around the ballpark here, just checking out amenities at First Horizon.
It's a nice ballpark to wander around. If you've not been here, you should. It's really enjoyable. Again, they have a 6:35 matchup tonight against the Louisville Bats. Come on out. They'd love to have you. I'm debating whether or not I'm going to hang out. Although we get off the air here in about 16 minutes, and I'm not sure I'm going to hang out for 2.5 hours.
And it's lengthy.
That's tough. That's tough.
There are a number of eateries around us.
There are some eateries, and I will tell you that by 6:35 I will have eaten.
Yeah.
So we'll see how it goes. Just saw an email as we get ready for the weekend. We mentioned that the Cats play at 7 o'clock. I'm sorry, it's 8 o'clock Central Time out at Billings tomorrow night. trying to improve on that 2-4 record. Well, the Cats will be off the following 2 weekends. They will have a bye both for week 8 and week 9 of the Arena Football League schedule before concluding their regular season at home against the Southwest Kansas Storm, according to this release that the team has sent out. Again, went out via email at the bottom of the hour here. So they will face the Southwest Kansas Storm on June 29th, which is a Saturday, at 4:30 Central Time at Municipal. So the ownership groups of all 9 Arena Football League teams, along with league owner G6 Sports Group, have worked diligently the past several weeks to finalize a schedule that is best for the teams, league, and most importantly, their fans, says interim AFL Commissioner Jeff Fisher. Changing dates of games or opponents and reworking travel has been like putting a puzzle together, but we feel the team has been reinvigorated through this process. We feel the league has been reinvigorated through this process and looks forward to not only completing the season strong, but also showing our excitement for the AFL going forward after this season.
That is a masterfully phrased press release, is what that is. That's one of those, we got to say something, but we can't say what we really want to say. But yeah.
The possible scheduling of regular season games into July and a playoff format are also being currently discussed. Over the next few weeks leading up to the June 29th game, the Cats will be announcing several components for fans, including a private meet and greet for season ticket holders with Fisher, Coach Dean Kokinos, and players. So be on the lookout for that. Again, they go out west tomorrow, taking on Billings. The Cats 2-0. The Outlaws, the Cats 2-4. The Outlaws 5-0. So another challenge for the Cats. You know, their starting quarterback went out in that loss to Albany last week. I don't know what his status is for this weekend, but
and we know if nothing else, that's a very quarterback-driven league. So the fact that he could potentially be out and that long of a road trip, and I'm assuming, I'm going to go out on a limb that they're probably not flying on Jeff Fisher's private plane, or, they're not flying a charter. So those road trips, man, for that league in particular, that could be tough. I certainly hope they pull off a win, but, man, that's going to be a tall assignment.
Goodness gracious, how do you get to Billings?
Once upon a time, I used to know this because Martin Methodist, the women's national tournament was there one year. There ain't no easy way to get there. Let's put it that way.
You got to go to Denver, right?
Yeah, some sort of a connecting flight, unless there's an airline that you're not very familiar with, may randomly offer a nonstop, but you wouldn't trust it. Let's put it that way.
Little planes, trains, and automobiles.
Yeah,
yeah.
Pack a bubble gum situation.
In other minor league football action this weekend, the UFL playoffs begin. The USFL semifinal has Michigan at Birmingham. That's a 2:00 kick Central Time tomorrow, and it can be seen on ABC. The XFL semifinal is San Antonio at St. Louis. That is a 6:00 kickoff on Sunday and can be seen on Fox. And I assume, and you got to be careful with assuming, but I would take it that the UFL championship is next weekend.
I bet that's right.
I can't imagine them having an off week.
Just getting ready to say that.
Yeah. So let's see if we can find that real quick before we move away from football. Cannot. I can't.
We'll revisit.
Yeah. Well,
and final obscure football note. The CFL is underway. We'll spend 10 seconds on that. The Blue Bombers lost 27-12 to the Alouettes, so that caps our whirlwind tour of the other leagues.
UFL championship game is June 16th in St. Louis at the Dome at America's Center. So St. Louis could actually be
at home
at home for the finals. So see how that goes. Wade, how many shekels will you be getting down on the Belmont Stakes, and who will you be getting them down on?
That's a still to be determined question in terms of the amount, but let me pull this, make sure this stat was correct. Probably going to go just the way that these two other Triple Crown races have gone. I'm going Sierra Leone to win. I know that's not a big shock in terms of betting odds. The crazy thing, though, this will be the 6th race that Sierra Leone has run. All but one have basically been big races or graded stakes, as it's referred to.
Mm-hmm.
And he is literally inches, cumulative inches from being undefeated. Finishing second at the Derby by a nose. He lost at the Bluegrass Stakes by a length and a half, lost another couple races by less than a length or a nose. And so Sierra Leone would probably get my may not be the best value, but that's who I'm going to take just because it feels like Mystic Dan. That moment is maybe past.
Mm-hmm.
And then Seize the Gray. Wouldn't necessarily sleep on Seize the Gray. Man, that's a good-looking horse, though. And love a gray horse. And Seize the Gray wouldn't be a bad little backup option for me. But I'm going to go a little chalk here to see how we go. What are your thoughts?
It is chalk. Sierra Leone 9-5 favorite at Belmont.
Just doesn't feel like any of these horses in these last two races have had the major momentum. So it feels like maybe it's Sierra Leone's time to pull it through.
Well, I mean, like you said, Sierra Leone has run well, just hasn't made it to the winner's circle. Also, Mind Frame, lightly raced, according to this article on CBS
Two
Sports,
races.
But 7-2 are the odds on Mind Frame. Mystic Dan coming in at 5-1, Seize the Gray 8-1. Those are your top 8 options at Belmont, which will go off at 5:41 Central Time tomorrow. So should be riveting.
It'll be good, and that's the longest of the three. So that will, which way I can't tell you, but that will play a factor. Don't be surprised if somebody gets out to a decent lead and then fades. Yep.
Okay. All right. The Wine Steward is 15-1. Antiquarian is 12-1 coming out of the 5 gate. Let's see. Dornock, Protective, Anna Marie. Sierra Leone is out wide coming out of number 9.
And that reminded me because I had some money down on Dornock during the Kentucky Derby. That's Jason Worth's horse. He's one of the owners.
Really?
Yeah, they showed him. He was dapper as ever, and that's his horse. So maybe I'll revisit him after I kind of fell by the wayside in the Derby. I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah. Resilience coming in at 10-1. So, rounding things out, you've got 2 teams in the Stanley Cup Finals, one of which hasn't won a cup in more than 30 years, one of which has never won a cup, when the Oilers and the Panthers drop the puck tomorrow night.
I think this is going to be a really fun series. You got the McDavid subplot, too. I mean, he's done everything but win to kind of cap his coronation, as it were. It'd be fun to see the Oilers win it from the Canadian standpoint. Obviously, hadn't won it in Asia's standpoint. On the other hand, it'd be really cool to see Florida, who's came close on a number of occasions, only to be denied a couple of times. So I think it's going to be a really fun series. If it lives up, if the Stanley Cup Finals live up to the hype that the kind of the Western Conference and the Eastern Conference Finals had, I think we're in store for some really good hockey. And I wouldn't be surprised if it goes deep.
4 members of the Edmonton roster were born when they last won it back on May 24th, 1990. Corey Perry, Derek Ryan, Adam Henrique, and Matthias Ekholm.
The former Pred, right?
Exactly. So there's always a connection. Right?
Always a connection, and Florida will be rocking. The Rats will be on alert. They will be tossed in the event they can pull it off. Finishing runner-up on a couple of different occasions, just last year, but then also back in '96, which is kind of when that they called it the Rat Trick. Mo, I learned this when we were talking about it because, and I can't remember the players, but we should have done this on Wild and Wacky Wednesday. Now I think about it, but the story goes that a player for the Panthers saw a rat in the locker room, and hopefully we're not going to get in trouble with PETA or any organizations here, but killed the rat with his hockey stick. The same player goes out that night. What do you think he does?
Hat trick. With said stick.
With the stick. And the goalie, again, I can't remember the players' names, but the goalie at that point said, yeah, that's the rat trick is what that's called. And so that kind of stuck with the fans, kind of like the rally monkey, some other things we've seen over the years. The sausage that we saw with the Twins earlier this year. Sometimes you just got to latch on to something. And so that's how these plastic rats, luckily they're not real, hurled onto the ice after a Panthers victory, or I suppose in the event of a hat trick, but usually after a victory in the postseason. So they will be on display. And I get the feeling they'll be on display a time or two during this series as they kick things off tomorrow night.
We mentioned earlier in the week, Edmonton was 3-9-1 back in mid-November. They fired Jay Woodcroft. They hired Chris Knobloch out of the American Hockey League. Over their final 69 games, the Oilers won 46, scored 97 points, finishing with the 7th most points and 4th most wins in the National Hockey League.
They've been on fire. And the crazy thing, we talked about it earlier in this show with baseball being razor thin margins. We've seen a couple of things. We obviously saw the Preds feel like they outplayed the Canucks. A lot of times in their series, they fall. Then the Canucks turn around and give the Oilers a really good series, but they fall. Kind of just painting that picture there. And then in particular, there's been a couple big crazy saves and crazy situations, particularly involving the Oilers, including one, and I got to give a shout out to my buddy Guy Schaefer for coining this term. There was a save made, and you might have seen this clip. It was kind of semi-viral last week or 2 weeks ago. One of the Oilers defensemen, there's a scramble in front of the net, and everybody's kind of just moving around. Well, he turns his backside to the goal. His backside is now facing away from goal, and a shot goes off his rear end. And my buddy Guy Shaver said that's a Reister off the Keister type situation. So we've had a butt save for Edmonton lately. There was another play where the shot was basically going into an empty net, but there was someone's stick that they lost their stick, and it just happened to be floating there. And so it technically saved it in that sense. So there's been some weird kind of fluky things.
Who gets the save there? Whoever's stick it was?
That's a great question. I don't think in good consciousness you could give the goalie the save there. So there's been some unusual things that have happened with the Oilers. Maybe
some wild and wacky hockey.
Maybe some wild and wacky tea leaves are breaking in favor of the Oilers. I'm picking the Oilers to win this series. I think just been some unusual odd karma kind of going in their favor. And they really played a really tough road to get here. The Panthers have as well, but I like the Oilers to win this series.
Between the odd stuff going on and just the idea of a Canadian team winning it, I kind of like Edmonton to win this as well. Tennessee up 7-5 in the bottom of the 5th over Evansville, and that will close out today's show. That'll close out the week here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. come back Monday at 2 o'clock. We will be here in the Lee Company studios. Well, not here, but thanks to the Nashville Sounds for making First Horizon Park available to us today. And again, we'll be back Monday, 2 o'clock. We will see y'all then.